These were some of the titles he was accustomed to being referred to. He was one of the 5 heroes of the Devil's Civil War, Naruto Bael. Before he left, he was arguably the strongest of the 5, but after all these years, there's no argument. He is the strongest devil alive and the strongest person alive in the whole DxD world. He was sitting on a large rock and fishing in a river in Japan. He wore a jinbei, wooden sandals, and a bamboo hat. "Why are you here, old crow?" Naruto muttered as a figure appeared from behind him. The figure was a man in his mid to late 20s with black hair and blonde bangs hanging in front of his face. On his face was a small black goatee, and he had dark pink-colored eyes. On his back, however, were 12 wings as black as night, indicating he was a fallen angel. This was Azazel. He created the Fallen Angels organization, Grigori, and became its governor-general. "You're a hard man to find. 200 years continuously on the move made you near impossible to track." Azazel spoke as a grin appeared on his face while Naruto simply looked at him, then turned back to the river. "I was a stealth operative just as much as a powerhouse. Your spies only found me now because I could sense that you had an actual reason to find me this time instead of just wanting to keep track of me." "Yup. It's to visit and talk to an old friend," he said. Naruto's face does not change even once, leading to him sighing and changing his countenance to a more serious one. In the last decade, a group has begun to form that could very easily threaten not only the human world but also the underworld and heaven. This group is a little different from the other groups or factions that have been put together in the past. Naruto nodded slightly while listening to what the man had to say. The group is not just one species but made up of multiple divisions, each with a different creature occupying it. Angels, fallen angels, devils, strays, magicians, yokai. You name it, they have all joined this group. He enunciated before his eyebrows shot up in surprise when he heard Naruto chuckle. "From what you're describing, I think I am correct when I say you are talking about the Chaos Brigade?" he asked, getting a bigger surprised look from Azazel. "You know?" he asked as Naruto snorted and rolled his eyes. "Of course, I know. You don't think I would not know about a group like that getting together? You would have to be a fool not to take notice of something this big." "But how do you know them?" Azazel asked as the Great King snorted again. "Those idiots asked me to join, of course. When that didn't work, they tried to use force. The fools that tried are dead now." Azazel nodded, but in his mind, he knew he would have to try and keep tabs on Bael just in case he was lying. "Does anyone else know?" he asked and saw Azazel shake his head. "No, but I think your old buddies, the 4 Satans, are beginning to notice. I have noticed Searzex and Ajuka sending some of their peerages out more and more lately on recon missions. The actions of the Chaos Brigade are beginning to get noticeable." Not surprising, Naruto spoke before turning to look forward again. "So how is my old friend Searzex? I only kept up to date on my family's well-being. Stabbed anyone else in the back lately?" Azazel winced at the bitter tone he spoke in, mentally fighting over whether he should tell him about a certain piece of information. It was not known publicly worldwide, but many higher-ups knew about the situation between the 3 devils. Flashback. Many years after the Great War and the death of the Satans, the underworld fell into a civil war with Satan's families wanting to continue their family's legacy and fight against the angels and the fallen ones, while on the other side were many of the remaining families of the 72 pillars that had been reduced to now just 34 that wanted peace and a new order. The conflict lasted for almost a decade until 5 devils from 5 different families stood together, pushed back the old Satan faction, and secured the war in favor of the anti-Satan faction. Searzex Gremory, Ajuka Astaroth, Seraphal Citri, Falbium Glacia Labelas, and finally Naruto Bael. Though young, each young devil boasted incredible raw power that left many shaking where they stood and could decimate entire countries at a time. Each had their own skill set and power. Individually, they were powerful but near invincible. The strongest of the group, Searzex Gremory and Naruto Bael, were best friends and rivals and had known each other since they were in diapers. The civil war had taken its toll on every devil alive. Still, eventually, the anti-Satan faction prevailed, with Naruto landing the final and deciding blow to Rizavam Levon Lucifer and securing the victory for the new devil faction. With this, the old faction retreated and hid while the underworld quickly began to change under its new management. With the leaders gone, The five stepped up to take responsibility for the underworld and protect its people and everyone living and breathing in their home world. Before this could continue, a problem arose that surprised many and shook the friendship between Circex and Naruto. Despite being best friends, the two had their arguments occasionally and had their own opinions on some issues. However, many were left surprised when the very thing that caused tension between the two to rise was not a thing or an object but a person. A woman called Graphia Lucifuge. Graphia was a beautiful woman from one of the extra demon families that many saw as the perfect female devil. She had beauty, brains, power, and an attitude that could keep even the foulest male devils in line. She had initially been on the side of the old faction, but after meeting the five heroes of the new faction, she defected and became a powerful ally of the new group. She quickly stood out to everyone, but none more so than Naruto and Circex. At first, she had taken a shine to Naruto, and the two quickly became a couple and spent many months together in their bubble of love. But while Naruto had given his heart to Graphia, her eyes and heart secretly yearned for another. It was only a few weeks after the defeat of the old faction that Naruto had returned home to find his girlfriend's clothing spread across the floor along with male clothing that did not belong to him, and they could hear voices coming from their room. Every step he took caused a bit of his heart to crack until, eventually, it broke when he found Graphia in their bed with none other than his best friend, Circex. What happened next led to Circex almost being burned to a crisp and reduced to ashes as Naruto went into a rage as he attacked his now former friend. Their fight gained enough attention that the combatants' parents, their comrades, and several high-ranking lords and ladies came. The reason for Naruto's evident anger was readily apparent to all those who came when they saw the naked and distraught Graphia, who only had a blanket to keep her modesty. Naruto destroyed the house that had all her clothes. In absolute fury, he nearly killed Circex with a jet black sun. Naruto hovered above the beaten Circex with his hand raised to the sky while a massive ball of jet black sun grew in power and size. His mother was the only thing that stopped Naruto from turning the already battered Circex into ash. She tried to call out to him, but with the heat and power releasing, she could only let out a barely audible gurgle. It was enough to gain his attention because he turned to look at her, then grimaced at her form. He relented on his power, allowing her to hear enough to rasp out what she needed. "You'll destroy the underworld with that attack." Gritting his teeth at that fact, he dissipated his gigantic jet black sun and looked down at the now unconscious form of his former friend. He scowled at the red-headed traitor, then left. He didn't need to look at them to know that Graphia was already by Cirzex's side, and that fact shattered his already broken heart. The fight that made the entire war look insignificant in comparison lasted for almost 3 days straight, with neither of the fighters giving a moment of rest, which shook the underworld to its core. Enormous parts of the underworld had been reduced to rubble and would take years to rebuild, though thankfully, no one was harmed after being evacuated to somewhere safe. He told no one where he was going, not even his family. All he left was a note saying he was going away and would probably not return for a long time. Afterward, his leaving the underworld moved on and rebuilt. The remaining 4 heroes of the Devil Civil War took up the mantle of the old Satans and became the new 4 great Satans, with Circex being the leader of the 4 and taking up the cover of Lucifer. In contrast, Ajuka took Beelzebub, Seraphald took Leviathan, and Falbium took Asmodeus. Ajuka created the evil peace system, and Naruto was the first to use it. He got 2 peerage sets, and Ajuka kept it secret from all the devils. With so few pure-blooded devils left and half of the 72 pillars now extinct, they needed to repopulate the underworld somehow, eventually leading to the evil peace system. A system that allowed humans and other creatures and people to be reincarnated and turned into devils. Flashback end. What was the last you heard about Circex and Graphia? Azazel asked and noticed the twitch in Naruto's hand when he said her name. Only that he and her were living a happy life as the mighty power couple of the underworld. A story similar to Romeo and Juliet. It would seem that way, and they also had a kid together, Azazel said, noticing the devil's attention was now firmly on him. "I see," Naruto stated, trying to keep his emotionless mask on his face. "Why do you keep phrasing it like that?" Azazel sighed while rubbing the back of his head before he spoke. "Because I believe that they aren't together anymore." Silence. What prompted that assumption? Naruto whispered. I've managed to hide a listening device planted in his office and one in his home for a while before they were discovered and destroyed. She keeps that emotionless maid facade up 24/7. I know for a fact that they sleep in different rooms. Some human married couples do that, but devils are creatures of sin, so it doesn't make sense for them to have such modesty, especially in the privacy of their home. Then there's the fact that their supposed child has none of her features. Naruto stayed quiet for a long time afterward, and Azazel had enough tact to allow him a moment of silence. Finally, Naruto spoke again. We got off track. That's not the reason why you came here. Why come to me with this information? Why me, of all people? Well, that's easy. I don't know their ultimate goal yet, but whatever it is, it can't be good, especially if members of the old Satan faction get involved. Azazel said as Naruto got a dark look on his face. If the old faction even tries, I will put them right back into the hole they dared to crawl out of. Yes, but even you can't do it alone, Azazel said seriously. From what I can tell, they will target the underworld eventually. Whether it's people or land, a new potential war is brewing. The underworld will need you. Since when did you start caring about devils? I don't really, he replied, shrugging, but many of my brethren live in the underworld, and you and I both know what war can cause. The pain, suffering, and death it brings. I don't want to see another war break out. This could be the chance for our three sides to put our differences aside and make a real peace treaty and not this paper-thin ceasefire we have had for centuries, Naruto said, noticing where the conversation was leading. In response, Azazel nodded. If we have any chance, then the best way may be for the three factions to align. They spoke for 5 more minutes as Azazel explained it to Naruto, who was half listening and thinking about the information he was being told. If the old Satan faction were making a move, he wanted to ensure they got put down more permanently. You should be taking this up with the Satans. Not me, Naruto said as he got up and put away his fishing pole. But, I will keep my eyes open and at least consider the possibility of returning to the underworld. He turned around to walk away but stopped when Azazel spoke up. In that case, you think you could do a favor for me? He asked, getting Naruto's attention again. He looked at Azazel briefly before nodding at him to keep speaking. There's a kid I want you to look at. Her name is Izumi Hyodo. What's so special about this kid? He asked but never got an answer back as Azazel spread his wings and disappeared into the sky. Stupid bird, he muttered as he took the long way back to Mount Kailash. Luna Biel, lady of the House of Biel, was a beautiful young woman who still looked to be in her early to mid-20s despite being many centuries old. She was currently walking through her massive garden towards her gazebo, thinking. She does this every few days, thinking about her firstborn, Naruto. They named him after Maelstrom because he was born during heavy rain in Maelstrom. He lived up to his name by having a pivotal role in the Devil Civil War. Luna made it to her pavilion, and a maid was already there with tea. Would you like some tea, my lady? The maid asked after Luna sat down. She shook her head and waved her hand politely. No, thank you. The maid nodded and returned to the kitchen to continue with her duties. She sat alone, not in the mood for company right now, and needed to clear her thoughts independently. Her eldest son had been gone for 200 years, and she had no idea where he was, how he was, or even if he was still alive. She only got information about him from the long letters he would send. He would send those letters with many gifts for everyone in the family. Sometime within the last century or so, he started to send many pictures with the letters he would send, something she was most thankful for because it was proof that he was still alive, and it showed her that the smile that bitch stole had slowly made its appearance as time progressed. While it was never enough to get a pinpoint location on her son, it was enough to find out what he had been doing, at least. For many of them, she was left almost having heart attacks from what her son did. Fighting hordes of angels and fallen angels on his own, confronting a dragon king, and battling a seraph. She would have died from worry years ago if she didn't know that her son was mighty. But it also seemed that he was making powerful friends, gaining allies, finding lost treasure, and returning them. Her son was not only a prodigy but a genius regarding hard work. He didn't get his great power from slacking off. He would spend days, weeks, and even months training non-stop to control and advance his abilities fully. Naruto's power had always been an oddity, however. He had the destruction powers like other members, but they first noticed that his power of destruction was not the average power of destruction. It was very dark and powerful, not like the normal power of destruction. Luna ensured he trained extensively in his power of destruction, and he was trained by his father and founder of the Bael clan. He became the most powerful user of the power of destruction user in the underworld's history. The second oddity that stood out about her son was his demonic power in general. It was far higher than most devils, and even when he was young, his raw strength was already on par with a seasoned high-class devil. It made her proud knowing her son was on par with the four-grade Satan and that he had played a pivotal role in ridding them of the old faction. Then there was the Gremory family that left a bitter taste in her mouth, making her face scrunch in distaste. Her relationship with the Gremory family had been severed after their eldest son and now daughter-in-law had broken her son's heart. There was a time when she and the Gremory matriarch, Venelana Gremory, had been best friends and had grown up together, even when Venelana was still a Bael and neither had married or had children. But after the incident and watching her friend welcome Grafia into their home happily, the two had been significantly strained and rarely conversed with one another. The Bael family still talks with the Gremory family in business terms, and Lord Bael often spoke with Lord Gremory. "Mother." The voice brought her out of her thoughts before smiling as she saw her daughter, Isabella, walking towards her. "What is the matter, my dear?" Luna asked, her smiling at her daughter. "Nothing, mother. I came to see you and what you are doing in the garden." Isabella asked. She got a sad smile on her face. "I'm just thinking about your brother and wondering where he is right now." Isabella quickly understands that she is talking about her elder brother and heir of the Bael clan. The subject of her eldest brother was taboo in the Bael home because any mention of him would worry their mother, despite the letters. Even her father was careful when bringing up the oldest son. "Mother, there is no need to worry about Nisan. He is the strongest devil, sending us letters. We will see him soon," Isabella said. "But I haven't seen him for 200 years, and he only sends letters and photos, and at least I wanted to see him," Luna said. Both daughter and mother started to talk with each other. The mother and daughter shared a peaceful moment as they enjoyed one another company as they thought about their lost family member. Mount Kailash. Mount Kailash, a snow-covered mountain, stands tall and majestic, its peak reaching towards the sky. The snow covering it is pure and white, reflecting the sun's light in a dazzling display. The air is crisp and cold, and the silence is only broken by the sound of the wind as it whistles through the valleys. As one climbs higher, the trees become sparse and eventually disappear, replaced by rocks and snow. The view from the top is breathtaking, with miles and miles of snow-covered mountains stretching out before one. The world seems to be at one's feet, and one feels on top of the world for a moment. Mount Kailash is a place of beauty and wonder, where nature reigns supreme. It is a reminder of the natural world's power and majesty and one's place within it. It is a place to find peace and solitude, reflect on the world around oneself, and be inspired by the beauty surrounding them. We can see 3 children playing with each other near a house, 1 boy and 2 girls. The boy has black hair and black and red-eyed eyes, and he is wearing a black button-up shirt, white shorts with suspenders, and a white crop jacket. His shirt is not tugged in, and he wears a red ribbon in the neck area, long black socks, and white boots. One girl has blonde hair and blue eyes with black bows on either side of her head. She is wearing a purple dress with a white collar and black shoes, and the other girl is wearing light blue hair and blue eyes, a blue skirt, a white blouse, and black shoes. They are Enos Bael, Sasha Bael, and Misha Bael, children of Naruto Bael and next-generation pure-blooded devils of House Bael. "Kids, it is lunchtime," shouted a woman from the backside. 3 turned towards her and said, "Okay, Mom." As the kids started to run towards the house. The woman looks beautiful with ash-colored silver hair and golden eyes. She is wearing a white dress with a blue ribbon tied around her waist. She is Aisha Bael, Naruto's first wife, and the kids run towards the house and go inside the house. Inside the place, we can see a beautiful girl in her mid-20s. Her hair is blonde, and her eyes are purple. She is wearing a gray dress with thin strips covered by an apron. She is Lilith, Naruto's second wife. "Come on, kids, eat your lunch," Lilith said as she placed the plates with food before the kids and then joined them for lunch with Aisha. And other house members soon joined them, and everyone was eating lunch. After lunch, the kids watch TV with their favorite uncle, Ban. All of them are watching a comedy show. While they were watching TV, suddenly a magical circle appeared, and Naruto came out as the kids screamed, "Daddy!" 3 of them hugged Naruto tightly. Naruto also hugged them tightly, and Naruto also joined with the kids to watch the show. And after completion of the show, Naruto and Ban trained kids in their physical abilities for an hour and went inside to eat snacks, and the kids played tag team with each other. As he sat there, his thoughts briefly went to his family that resided in the underworld. The Biel family was one of the strongest and wealthiest of the remaining 34 families and one of the biggest. Isabella, his younger sister, was only 5 when he left home, and now his sister is an ultimate class devil. Naruto also gathered that she was in the top 10 rating games the new faction had created. Thinking about his mother always made him feel guilty, and for good reason. He and his mother had always been close since he was the firstborn. While he and his father got on well enough, both of them were training partners, and he loved his father greatly. His mother had always been a big part of him becoming who he is today. Luna Biel was the best mother he could have asked for, and he felt ashamed of the pain he had put her through when he left. He just hoped she understood why he left. "You are thinking too hard again," a whispered voice said from behind him as he felt a pair of long, smooth arms wrap around his shoulder and a nibbling feeling coming from his ear. Naruto patted the smooth arms and let out a dry chuckle before he turned his head and looked at the beauty that leaned across him. The person behind him was his wife, Aisha. "What were you thinking about? You looked lost there for a moment," she asked, watching him silently for the last 5 minutes. He didn't answer immediately, but when he did, he just said one word. "Home." She sighed as she rubbed her cheek against his, showing him she was there for him. She knew why he had left home, and her heart went to the devil. "Then perhaps it's time to go home. I think nearly 2 centuries is long enough, don't you think?" She told him that, having noticed in the last few years, he had this faraway look when he visited her. "Perhaps, but then again, I have acquired a nice quiet life outside the underworld. It has been a while since any angels, fallen, or other creatures have dared to attack me. I think the message finally got across. I think it may have been because you gave that foolish dragon quite the beating the last time you two met. When someone beats the great black dragon, I'm sure word gets around. Well, he is the one who asked for it." She nodded and said, "It is time to return to the underworld and come what is your rightful position." Lilith joined her as Naruto said, "I guess it is the time the underworld gets his real king." 2 weeks later. "So that's Rias Gremory," Naruto spoke as he stood atop a nearby building and looked down towards the 18-year-old girl currently taking part in a skirmish before Kuo Academy. She was a pretty little thing with the familiar red hair and blue-green eyes he recognized all too well. He would have mistaken her for Venelena Gremory if not for the hair and could easily recognize her as Lord and Lady Gremory's daughter despite never formally meeting her. He was watching as the young Gremory girl was fighting a 10-winged fallen angel alongside her peerage and, to his surprise, 2 followers of the church, with one wielding a holy sword and the other wielding what looked like the Durandal. "I have not seen that sword in a long while," he whispered. Scanning the school, he could sense another high-class devil along with their peerage on top of the highest building in the academy. From what he could tell, they were creating a barrier to protect the school. The devil's signature felt strongly like his old friend Seraphal. Some kind of relation, I guess. I did hear Lord and Lady Citri had another child some time ago. He stood and watched before wincing when the Gremory girl blasted back but was saved by a brown-haired girl who he guessed was part of her peerage. They won't last long against Kokabiel, he thought as he had her arms crossed against his chest. They are nowhere near that kind of strength yet. Not even the Gremory girl can pose a threat to him. I'm a little disappointed. I thought the little sister of that red-haired bastard would be better than this. I guess I got my hopes up, Naruto said, twiddling his fingers before focusing on the brown-haired girl standing protectively before her. Though there is something special about that girl, he muttered, drawing attention towards the girl and looking her over. Everything about her looked normal, and he did not feel all that powerful. But what attracted him was the gauntlet that covered her left arm. A sacred gear, but it feels and looks different from the others I have seen. It feels stronger. A Longinus, maybe? He scanned it with his eyes and played back in his head all the sacred gears that he was aware of, had seen, and read about over the years. A red gauntlet with a green gem in the center of it, he thought. After a moment of silence and he sucked in his breath. The boosted gear. I remember reading about it many years ago. The boosted gear, also known as the Red Dragon Emperor's Gauntlet. It has the spirit of the Welsh dragon, Didrig, within it. It can double the user's power every 10 seconds and is one of the strongest sacred gear in existence and the rival of Valiana, Naruto said to himself while shaking his head. No wonder Azazel was so interested in this kid. Naruto sighed and clicked his tongue as he turned to his left and was not surprised to see Azazel standing on a building a little ways off, watching the battle as well. He then turned his head and saw Azazel motion to the fight. I better stop these kids from getting killed. Damn rookies, he muttered before he flew into the air. He didn't want to get involved but couldn't let them die, even if one of them was the sister of the red-haired bastard. Outside Kuo Academy, Izumi, Rias Gremory shouted as she saw her pawn holding by her neck, and she was choking for air. He released her, and she fell. Rias slid along the floor and caught her pawn, Izumi Hyodo, before she could hit the ground and looked around the battlefield. All her peerage members were currently down and out for the count. Her knight, Kiba Yuto, Bishop Asia, and Rook Kaneko Tujo were unconscious to her left, with her wounded queen, Akeno Himejima, standing protectively before them. To her right, the church follower Irina was out for the count while Zenobia barely stood and used the Durandal to keep herself upright. Looking behind her, she looked towards Sona and her peerage and could see the sweat along their foreheads. They would not be able to keep the barrier up for much longer. Stay behind me, bucko, her pawn told her as she shakily stood back up and glowed the gem on her boosted gear. No, Izumi, you're not strong enough, she said, grabbing her arm tightly. You'll die in your current state. In front of her, the fallen angel Kokebiel laughed as he began listing reasons why he would not fall and how he would make their deaths as painful as possible. Stay with me, Izumi. Stay with me, Rias whispered to her pawn as she held her arms around Izumi protectively, daring the fallen angel to make a move. Time to die, Gremory, Kokebiel called out as light weapons appeared around him. All Rias could do was gulp and grip Izumi even more. It was times like this that she wished she was not so weak. Why she couldn't be more like her brother and sister-in-law. Enough, a strong voice suddenly muttered as a small shot of power of destruction shot forward and sailed towards Kokebiel. The fallen angel deflected it with a light shield but was unaware of the spear made of the power of destruction that was thrown towards him until it buried itself into his shoulder, knocking him back and putting him on one knee. "Who dares?" he shouted, looking around frantically for someone who dared to harm him. "I dare," the same voice said as everyone's attention turned to the left of them. All they saw were parts of Naruto's body, with his face hidden by the shadows of the night, with only his black and red eyes remaining visible. "You have been a thorn in the side of many, Kokebiel, and tonight I will end you once and for all," he declared as her eyes narrowed towards the fallen angel. "Fool, who do you think you're talking to?" Kokebiel shouted as light swords began appearing all around, easily as big as cars, making the young devils gulp when they saw them. The blades could kill them at any moment. Naruto shook his head before showing this fallen angel what real power was as he released part of his demonic power. The moment he did, anyone who remained to stand suddenly dropped to the ground as a pressure that one had never felt suddenly slammed into them and kept them pinned. Even on the rooftops, Sona and her peerage dropped to the ground, releasing the barrier unintentionally. Kokebiel, though, had begun to sweat, barely able to stand up from the weight of this man's demonic pressure. Rias and Akeno, who were on the ground, both gulped as they felt the power coming from the mysterious man. It made their power look tiny in comparison. The only person Rias could think of who had control like this was her brother. Naruto outstretched his arms, and they all watched as the power of destruction formed all along his arms. They all felt the temperature of the air suddenly go up drastically, so much so that they were sweating up a storm in only a few moments from the sudden heat. "Take this," Kokebiel shouted as dozens of light swords flew through the air and sailed towards Naruto, who remained in his spot and looked at the attack lazily. "Boring," he muttered before he waved his hand gently, and everyone watched as a thick and enormous wall made out of the power of destruction suddenly appeared in front of him and destroyed the enormous light swords as if they were nothing. "Gravest," he whispered as the purple lighting formed around Kokebiel and hit him. Kokebiel tried to fly with his wings, but two purple lighting axes cut down all 10 wings. The screams of pain from Kokebiel were enough to make the devils wince at their opponent and try to shut it out. It sounded so brutal that even when they tried to look away, their eyes were drawn back to see one of their natural enemies get crippled. Naruto looked across from his opponent as Kokebiel struggled to stand up, as whatever was left of his wings dangled from his back. Power of destruction flickered across his arm, and before anyone could even blink, Naruto was gone and had moved at such a great speed that the people whose eyes were open and paying attention only saw the movement of a black flash. Looking around, they all heard Kokebiel wince and cried out in more pain. Turning around, they all saw that Naruto was standing before the man with his head hidden from Kokebiel's body as his left fist was buried deep into the fallen angel's stomach. Blood quickly shot out of the fallen angel's mouth from the decisive hit, forming a strong-looking light sword in his hand. Swinging it, it looked like it was about to connect when they watched their savior lazily move his head to the side, showing just a little of his head before quickly hiding it again. He grabbed Kokebiel's wrist, pulled it off with one tug, and threw it to the side. Ggggaahhhhh. Kokebiel screamed before they watched Naruto grab him by the throat and throw him into the air. With Kokebiel no longer having wings, he just sailed through the air with a look of permanent fear etched onto his face. "Who is he?" Rias whispered as her beautiful eyes focused on their mysterious savior and looked at the back of his head, which was now uncovered. He looked somewhat familiar, and the way he fought and destroyed Kokebiel, she had to admit, thrilled her a little to see it. "Ee," was all anyone heard as they watched the power of destruction form around Kokebiel. No, they heard from Kokebiel, who watched as the power of destruction was destroying him. When it did, there was no sign of Kokebiel. There was no body, no ashes, no nothing. He had just been completely wiped off the face of the planet by this mysterious person who had just saved them and, in a way, shown how powerless they were. Everyone watching, including Rias, Izumi, Akeno, Xenovia, Sona, and her peerage, stared at the man in sheer amazement for defeating such a powerful fallen angel so quickly. While they may have been fighting him beforehand, it was not like they did much, even to wound the fallen one. After a moment, they watched the man turn his head towards them ever so slightly before he turned it around just as quickly and released the pressure of his demonic energy. Everyone down on the ground felt the weight lift from their bodies and could breathe easily again as the temperature began returning to normal. Rias meanwhile had her eyes fixated on the man in front of them and watched as he slowly began to walk away from them. Rias had to know who this person was. "Are you all right?" she asked as she turned to face the downed devils and their allies, who just dumbly nodded at her before Rias instructed Izumi to check on the other members, while Akeno walked over to stand by her king as they neared and walked towards their king. Next to her, she watched as Sona and Sona's queen Tsubaki teleported beside them, the Sea-Tree family heir having thoughts similar to hers. Seeing he was quickly leaving their line of sight, they ran over, quickly caught up with him, and watched as he stopped in his tracks. Naruto felt them getting closer to him, and he thought they would want answers. Rias because she had the Gremory curiosity and Sona because she had the Sea-Tree brains like her parents. He didn't turn around, but the girls could see he was listening to them. "Thank you for saving us," Rias whispered, giving her a slight bow followed by a projection from Akeno, Sona, and Tsubaki. "But tell me, just who are you?" The four girls stood together, all waiting for a response from their mysterious savior. After a moment of silence, they heard him speak. "I'm a friend. Someone asked me to step into this battle if I saw any of you were in danger of being killed. Since I could see that you couldn't handle Kokebiel, I decided to step it." "So you're a devil?" Rias asked him, nodding. "Then what part do you come from? Are you pure blood, a reincarnated, or a stray?" He let out a low chuckle at her question. "I think you already know the answer after watching." Rias nodded, thinking she knew as well, while Sona spoke up. "You from the Bael family? It's strange because I don't recognize you, and I realize most in the underworld." "Correct, So-chan. Your intelligence precedes you," he said, making her blush a little from his tone before she narrowed her eyes. "Don't call me that," she said, puffing her cheeks like a child. It just made him laugh even more. "Nah, aren't you adorable? I bet Sarah-chan has the best time teasing and playing with you, right?" he said, surprising the four of them. "You know my sister?" Sona asked, looking surprised. "I know all your siblings, along with your parents," he spoke as his eyes turned to look at Rias just for a second, and he said the girl could see the calculative gaze he was giving her as if trying to decide about her. Naruto couldn't help but feel a little weary around her. He had not made his mind up on what to think about the Gremory girl just yet. Then why have we never seen you if you know them, and why do you keep your face hidden? Surely you're not ugly, Akeno asked, giving him an eye smile with the others leaning in. He tapped his finger on his chin as he thought about his answer. While he could not see them, he knew they looked very inquisitive. He had missed teasing people like this. It was so easy for him. Let's just say I have been away from the underworld for a long time, and I am rethinking a few things. And I don't know, show my face because I don't want to, he said as he laughed when they fell flat on their faces. A Biel symbol appeared beneath him, indicating he was about to teleport away when Sona quickly stepped forward. Who are you? At least tell us your name. You already know my name, Naruto said in a tone, surprising them since it was all serious and business like their older siblings when they knew playtime was over. My actions today left clues as to who I am. You will just need to put the pieces together. Naruto quickly disappeared and left the four girls behind, with Sona going over what he said and putting her brain into overdrive. We know who he is, she thought as Rias and Akeno began to walk away with disappointed looks while Tsubaki stuck close. We know who he is from the clues he left us. What clues, however? He is a member of the Biel family, which is obvious. He looks older than us, but given how long devils live, he must be a century or two at least in age. He said he had not been to the underworld in many years and somehow knew Serafal and Rias's brother. Next to her, Tsubaki stood patiently before she watched in surprise when she saw her king's head suddenly shoot up and let a rare but powerful gasp escape her mouth as she threw her hands to cover it. Black flash, Sona whispered as her hands shook and looked back at where Naruto had left. Kuchu? What is it? She asked, stepping closer to Sona and putting an arm on her shoulder. A little ways off, Naruto, who had only teleported a short distance away and was hidden behind a building, smiled at how quickly she had figured it out and mentally praised the young devil for her intelligence. Black flash, she whispered again before looking towards Tsubaki. We're going to the underworld. I need to see Serafal immediately. Sona Citri was not one who usually let herself get all riled up and out of breath. She was always the quiet one, making logical and decisive decisions, and preferred using tactics against an opponent rather than brute force and raw power. It was something she inherited from her family, the Citris. Being well known for their intelligence and water-based powers, they had always been seen as one of the strongest families around who also had the best medical care and facilities the underworld had to offer. It stood to reason that Sona was raised to carry herself like a lady and always act appropriately when around people. So it surprised many when they saw Sona Citri sprinting as fast as she could down the familiar path to her family mansion, where she knew her sister was currently residing. Behind her, her queen Tsubaki struggled to keep up and looked red and out of breath as she tried to keep up with her king. Open the gate, Sona called out as she neared her family estate and watched as the guards operating the gate fumbled around for a few moments in surprise before they unlocked the gate and gave her entry towards her home. The Citri home was a large palace with 3 floors that resembled an old English royal palace. It had hundreds of rooms with around 100 bedrooms for peerage members, servants, and guests. Pushing the large wooden doors open, she ran into the large entrance hall with her shoes clicking against its stone floor. Sona Kaichu, please wait for me, Tsubaki called, finally catching up to her king when she showed signs of slowing down. She stood beside her as she tried to catch her breath while Sona took little notice with her mind focused on one focus. Sona, a voice called, making the girl look to their left and see Lady Citri walking towards them, having just come from the living room with a book in her hand and hearing them enter the room. Lady Citri, mother, the 2 girls bowed as Lady Citri waved it off and stood just before them. Lady Citri, also known as Alexia Citri, was a beautiful woman who looked much like her youngest daughter, Sona, whose hair was shoulder-length but tied up in a bun and had the same violet eyes both daughters shared. Her glasses rested on her head, and she wore a long, elegant blue dress with a white bow tied around the middle. It's nice to have you home, my daughter, she hugged Sona. But this is a surprise. I did not think you were returning home until the young devil's opening ceremony. What has brought about this visit? She asked with an inquisitive look firmly on her face. I need to find Oni-sama. It is of the utmost importance, mother, Sona asked. She did not want to explain it more than she had to. It was for her sister's ears mainly. If her parents were there, then so be it. Lad Citri studied her daughter as if trying to figure out the sudden importance of seeing Sarafal, since she never usually went to her sister for anything. Sarafal had a well-known streak of embarrassing her sister. But quickly, she let it go as she held her arm out. "Your sister is in the study with your father. I believe they are talking current affairs," she said as Sona quickly nodded and bowed to her mother before rapidly making her way up the stairs and towards the study with Tsubaki behind her. Lady Citri watched them go before she decided to follow after them. Her interest peaked at her youngest current behavior. She knew it must have been important if Sona was actively trying to get to her sister. Usually, it was the other way around. Sona quickly made her way up the large flight of stairs before stopping at the second floor and traveling down the long hallway. She felt a little nervous and tense about the information she had for her sister. She did not know how Sarafal would react to what she was about to tell her. Eventually, getting to the study at the end of the hall, she pushed the door open and walked into a large room filled with books covering every wall, which went so high that it took up part of the third floor. She had spent many days and nights sitting in this room and going from one book to another. She had inherited the Citri family's want to learn. In the center of the room, she saw whom she was looking for as her sister Sarafal was sitting lazily on a chair with a lollipop in her mouth, looking all around the room as if trying to find something to keep her from boredom. Anyone who looked at Sarafal could easily see she was one of the most beautiful devils, with her long dark hair tied up in two ponytails held together with two pink ribbons. Her eyes were violet, like Sona's, with smooth pearl-like skin. While sporting a very large bust, her body was tiny, almost childlike, and she had only just hit the height of 5 feet 2. Sona almost had to groan when she saw she was still wearing her magic girl costume, something she had more than one off. Though her appearance made her look unsuspecting, she was arguably the strongest female devil in the underworld, with very few people capable of fighting her on even ground. Sona steadily approached as Tsubaki and Lady Citri walked in behind her. As she got closer, she saw Sarafal lazily look her way before her eyes went wide, and a joyful look appeared on her face. Before Sona could even take another step forward, her older sister was suddenly in front of her with arms and legs wrapped around her body and hugging her as tightly as possible. SOOO00TTTTTAANNNNN. Sarafal screamed aloud as she hugged her sister to death, sparking irritation on Sona's face. "Why is it like this every time we see each other?" she thought as she wriggled out of the grasp. "Sarafal, let your sister breathe," Lady Citri admonished when she noticed Sona turning a little blue. Sarafal let go before she huffed in annoyance and pouted towards her mother. "But Moom, I missed my Sotan," she said, making everyone in the room shake their head at her childish personality. The whole family had gotten used to Sarafal being very childlike in nature and knew that she would not change any time soon despite their attempts. "My daughter," Lord Citri said as he got up from his seat next to where Sarafal had been sitting and embraced his youngest. "Welcome home." Lord Citri is also known as Turbido Citri. He was too similar in appearance, with dark hair but dark blue eyes that neither of his children had inherited. He wore the average royal-looking clothing that was dark blue and white. He stood about a head taller than their mother since he was tall for a devil. "Thank you, father. I hope I did not come at an inconvenient time, but I needed to speak with Oni-sama as soon as possible." "So Tan loves me. I knew it." Sarafal cheered, jumping for joy. "Sarafal, stop at this instant," Lady Citri chided, which only made Sarafal stick her tongue out at her while Lord Citri sighed and rubbed his forehead. Behind Sona, Tsubaki's sweat dropped as she watched the Leviathan Satan argue with her mother as a bonk on the head courtesy of Lady Citri made the girl more active and did little to subdue her. "Sarafal, please calm yourself while your sister tries to speak to us," Lord Citri said to his daughter, but said the girl was too hyped that her beloved little sister wanted to speak to her personally. Sarafal had a very unhealthy obsession with her sister. She was a big-time siscon. Sona watched as Sarafal whined and complained to her parents and began to grow irritated at how her sister was acting. She should have seen this coming and decided to get the piece of information she had out there. "We were attacked by fallen angel today and were almost killed," she started, making her family stop talking and look at her. She watched her mother look concerned while her father and sister looked angry. Who dares attack my Sotan? Serafal bellowed as the ground beneath them froze suddenly at Serafal's anger. If there was anything that got Serafal angry, it was if someone tried to hurt Sona. When did this happen, Sona? Explain everything to us, Lord Citri asked as Lady Citri checked her over, only now noticing how tired-looking Sona looked. Sona explained the ordeal that happened. How the swords of Excalibur had been taken, how she had teamed up with Rias Gremory, her peerage, 2 exorcists, and then the battle at 10-winged fallen angel Kokabiel. She could see her family was unhappy by the determined frown on her parents' faces and the look of rage on Serafal's face. They have gone too far this time, Lord Citri spoke. Why is it whenever Azazel cannot control his fallen brethren, the devils have to take care of the matter? It sounds like Kokabiel was acting alone in this situation. Lady Citri spoke as her hands were on her daughter's shoulders. Still, 2 heirs to 2 of the 34 families were almost killed tonight. This matter can't be left unattended, he said. Teal frees anyone who tries to hurt my Sotan, Serafal spoke as her hands shook. The room had gone noticeably colder thanks to Serafal's ice magic. Serafal, get a hold of Lord Lucifer and the other Satans. Something must be done about this. I won't have my youngest be put in another situation like that again. Sona watched her family and was about to call the other families. No doubt Rias had already gone to her parents and brother about what happened, and they would most likely be less than pleased about what happened that night. They never even let her finish the story about how they were saved. She guessed her safety and that she and Rias were almost killed at the stopping point. She watched her family converse, her mother looking worried and her father and sister looking severe. She knew it was moments like this that Serafal stopped the childish persona and became the woman who helped stop the Devil's Civil War. There's more to the story, she said, but her family hardly noticed as they magically spoke with other people. A frown appeared before she took a deep breath and said what she came there to say. I think Naruto Bael saved us. And just like she thought, everything just stopped. Her father, who was mid-sentence with Lord Gremory via communication seal, stopped mid-sentence, and she watched him slowly turn his head towards her. Her mother had a similar look as she had to stop her glasses from falling from her head. Serafal, on the other hand, took much work to make out. She had frozen entirely, and her hair was shadowing her eyes, making it difficult for her to tell what she was thinking. She did, though, hear a short gasp when she heard the name. What did you say? Lady Citri asked after silence as her family focused entirely on her. I said I think Naruto Bael was the one that saved us. At least I'm about 90% sure it was him, she said as Tsubaki looked a little confused behind her. Who is Naruto Bael? She asked since she was unfamiliar with the name other than the last name Bael. Lady Citri turned to look at her. Naruto Bael is the eldest son of Lord and Lady Bael and is one of the 5 heroes of the Devil's Civil War. He was a comrade of Serafal's back during the war and had a big part in ending it. He disappeared 200 years ago and has not been seen since. Not even his family know of his whereabouts. Tsubaki nodded her head as a thoughtful look appeared on her face. After a moment, she gasped when she realized who they were speaking about. The Great King of Destruction? That's who saved us, she asked Sona, who nodded. That is one of the many nicknames he has earned thanks to his powers and skills. The other being the Black Flash and the King of Darkness. To think he is still alive, Lord Citri muttered. He has been gone for so long I thought he would have died by now. There are all kinds of nasties living in the human world. Quote, beside him, his wife nodded, knowing full well what kind of creatures and other entries lived in the human world. Are you positive it was him, Sona? Are you 100% sure it was him? He looks like a Bael member. Black hair, tan skin, and unique black and red eyes. His power of destruction is very black, not like Rias at all. He destroyed Kokabiel so quickly that it looked like he was not even trying. Her parents nodded and looked at one another. It's Naru-chan, Lady Citri said. He is the only devil I know with black and red eyes. We must let the Bael family know immediately. They will want to know about their son, especially Luna, Lord Citri mentioned, with Lady Citri nodding and placing a hand on her heart as she thought of her friend. She had seen his disappearance's effect on Luna. Even today, she could see that the little spark that went out when he never left fully returned. She had locked herself away for a long time and let the bitterness towards the Gremory and Graphia build up over the years. Because of this, her social group was never fully complete anymore. She hoped this was a sign that it would change very soon. Naruto, they all heard as Sona, Tsubaki, Lady, and Lord Cetri all turned to look at Serafal and were all a little surprised when they saw the look of desperation on her face as well, giving Sona a pleading look. "Was he okay, little sister? Did he seem well?" she asked as she grabbed her sister's hands in her own and asked in a polite, shaky but severe tone. It surprised Sona since she did not see this kind of side of her sister often. Her eyes drifted towards her parents, and she saw Lady Cetri looking at Serafal sadly while Lord Cetri snaked a hand onto his eldest shoulder, giving it a light squeeze. "What am I missing?" Sona thought before turning back to Serafal. He seemed fine. He seemed to recognize Rias and me and commented that I inherited the Cetri brains. He said he was a friend of his Sarah-chan and couldn't let his friend's baby sister get hurt. Watching Serafal, Sona watched as her expression changed, and a watery smile and glazed over eyes took over, and she let out a small laugh. Her parents let a small smile appear on their faces, too, and she felt her sister give her hands a tight squeeze and gently kiss them before letting them go. Thank you, Serafal whispered to Sona. All Sona could do was nod back dumbly before they watched Serafal walk out of the room with a beautiful smile that showed her happiness. He's back. Biel Estate. Isabella Biel and her best friend Ravina Phoenix sat on them as they watched Isabella's mother order many of their peerage members and send them to the human world. The moment the Cetri had called them, Isabella's mother had not stopped for a second as tears of joy fell on her face as she finally got the first real official news that the Cetri and Gremory heir had seen and had been saved by her son. They watched as she ordered them around and briefly spoke with Lord Biel before he left his office, no doubt going to see if he could get more people to help them look for Isabella's older brother and Ravina's crush. All of Isabella's peerage members are searching for her older brother, and then both disappear from the estate with their respective magic symbols. Gremory Estate. Grafia sighed as she had just finished her rounds for the day and headed back towards her bedroom. She had just put Milikas to sleep and was looking forward to having her body soaked in a warm bath. Entering their room, she quickly undressed, folded her clothes into neat piles, and then went to her bathtub. She turned the tap on and added the necessary bubbles to prepare herself for her bath. She undid her braids and let her silver hair fall naturally to the ground, stopping just above her knees. She just stood and waited completely naked while dipping her foot in the water to check the temperature as the water ran. A routine she had done for as long as she could remember. She sighed happily as the temperature hit the soles of her feet and gently submerged herself. 5 minutes later, she lay comfortably in the bubble-soaked bath as a delightful hum came from her lips, enjoying the warm water soaking her skin as she washed her arms with the soapy water. As she soaked in the warm bath, her mind traveled to the years she had spent with the Gremory family she once called her own. They had been welcoming towards her, and the marriage between her and Sirzex had been a boon to the family and the devil community. She remembered that day well, a fond memory she would never forget. Unfortunately, a memory is all that it'll be since she and Sirzex were no longer together. The fact that she and Sirzex were divorced was a secret to keep her safe from those who wanted her dead. Grafia Lucifuge never had much to regret. She was a by-the-book devil who followed the rules and only disobeyed them when she believed it was harmful to others. She didn't regret betraying her family since it gave her a better life. Despite the divorce, she didn't regret continuing to be the maid of the Gremory family. Despite their continued support, despite all the animosity she faced with other pillar devils, she felt she should help them in any way she could. Despite the divorce, she didn't regret marrying Sirzex because she gained a great friend in the end. But the one thing she did regret and still haunts her to this day was her relationship with Naruto Biel, the man she loves. She had never intended for him to find out the way he did, and the look on his face when he saw Sirzex and her together was just too painful to put into words. The heartbreak and the rage that followed were enough for her to shake at the mere memory. The affair between herself and Sirzex was not planned in any way. It was meant to have been a one-time thing they would forget about, but neither did. They didn't know then that it was customary to feel amorous after each battle. For devils, who are beings of sin, the lust they feel after a fight is more significant than a human's. Sirzex and Grafia were not only often fighting together, but they were also each other's first time. That factored into their consistent after-battle affairs, and they assumed love was what they felt for each other. The fact that she and Searsex had betrayed him in the bed that she and Naruto had shared for so long and made love many times always made her feel guilty. He had built the home just for them to one day make a family. That had been burnt down after his rage when he discovered their betrayal. While she thought back, the idea of a family with Naruto had always made her smile. The concept of having petite black-haired and silver-eyed sons and silver-haired and red-eyed daughters made her heart soar. While they were pleasant thoughts inwardly, she had always felt as if a part of her knew it would never happen. She still remembered one of the last intimate moments she shared with Naruto. It had been similar to how she was now. She had been lying in the bath when he came in and gave her one of his famous smiles that made most women quake at the knees. He had then massaged her feet and washed her body with a sponge before she pulled him into the tub. They made love to one another, cleaning themselves as they got dirty. Naruto had always been a fantastic lover. It was only the following week that it had all fallen apart. It was something she would always regret for the rest of her life. She hated that she strung him along as she did, but she felt she could no longer deny her heart. It wasn't fair on her or Naruto. She loved Naruto, but she thought she was in love with Searsex. Her betrayal of him was almost legendary and was kept very quiet among the 34 pillars, with only the lords, ladies, and heirs aware of what happened. Not even her sister-in-law, Rias, knew the story, and for that, she was thankful. If word had gotten out that the strongest queen and the current Lucifer had betrayed their closest friend and loved in such a way, it would have had disastrous effects on their families and the stability of the underworld. She did not want to be sent cold looks from the red-haired girl or the younger devils like she got from most of the older devils. The only ones who didn't glare assumed she was a whore and that they simply had to wait their turn. She had once been very close to both Seraphol and Lady Biel, but now Lady Biel despised her, with good reason, and Seraphol would only tolerate her at social gatherings. At meetings for the four Satans, Seraphol had ensured Searsex knew to avoid bringing Graphia along. She winced at the thought of Seraphol as her left hand traced a scar along the left side of her stomach. She received it when she made the mistake of challenging Seraphol for the title of Leviathan. The two had been on equal footing in terms of experience and power, but Seraphol's rage at what they did to Naruto made her unleash all her wrath and frustration onto her. While narrowly defeated, it sent Graphia to the hospital for 2 weeks and gained a scar. Searsex had been angry towards Seraphol, but one mention of Naruto's name and he backed off. Searsex's fear of Naruto after his brutalization was a barely concealed secret. The Bale's rage was not something he ever wanted to experience again. The multiple scars marred his flesh were a testament to that. Their group, which once consisted of 6 friends, was now so broken that she saw no chance of it being put together. Naruto had been that group's glue, and it quickly fell apart without him. Seraphol became more childlike. Ajuka became a stoic recluse who barely left his lab. Falbium became so lazy that the military of the underworld barely did more than odd chores, and Searsex became more playful and silly. Graphia could be honest and say that she missed him. She wanted to hold Naruto again and say how sorry she was. She wanted him to be her friend again. She wanted him to know she still loved him. If not for Naruto Biel, she would not be alive. With age came wisdom, and she was experienced enough to figure out she loved Naruto. She always has and most likely always will. After hearing from Searsex that Naruto has shown up near Kuo and helped Rias in her peerage. She wanted to meet, see, talk, and tell him how sorry she was. She wanted to be held by him again. She wanted to bathe in the unconditional love he gave her. She wanted the security his presence gave her. She wanted him. He had created this secluded place for himself to meditate undisturbed. Of course, few knew about this location. But he knew no one would ever visit him unless it were necessary. No one. Shiva. Except him. Shiva broke his meditation resignedly, but Naruto did not miss the slight smile on Shiva's face. Still, he pouted. Your best friend came to meet you, and this is the face you make? I am hurt. Shiva gave him a blank look. I felt you when you entered the Hindu faction's domain. There was no need to shout. I am sure even the Asgardians now know where you are. You don't have to be so dramatic. Naruto snorted. If I want others to know about my location, trust me, I have a flashier way of doing that. Of that, I have no doubt. Shiva smiled and then closed his eyes. As he released his breath, his form started to change. Usually, Shiva would appear like a 12-year-old handsome boy with green and black hair. It made him more approachable and, at the same time, less noticeable. But with Naruto, he would always take his natural form. 6 and 5 feet tall, lean build, with longer hair. His light blue skin would stand out the most to others, but to Naruto, it was his eyes. Shiva's eyes had no unique pattern but failed to hide the bottomless divinity and the infinite knowledge that Shiva possessed. "So, my best friend, what do you want now?" Naruto took a step back, his hands going over his chest. "How dare you? After all I have done, after all the ramen we shared. Is this how?" Shiva continued his flat stare, making Naruto fold his hands and click his tongue. "Fine tilde, you sound like I only visit you when I need something. I wish it were something as simple as that," Shiva chuckled. "Instead of pulling me into troubles." "Hey," Naruto protested, "you enjoyed every bit of those. Heck, after all our fiasco, I am the one who cleans up our mess." Shiva raised an eyebrow at Naruto's comment, making him blink. A second later, he let out a sheepish smile. "Well, most of the time." With a bright smile, Naruto came forward and bumped his fist with Shiva's. At first, Shiva was not overly fond of this greeting. But it was either this or a bear hug. "So, what kind of brilliant idea you came up with this time?" The sarcasm was not lost to Naruto, but Shiva stopped him before he could retort. "Look, we know each other quite well. It is true that whenever you have time, you would visit me for a cup of chai or ramen. Now, if it is just for chit-chat or catching up, you would not have barged into the Hindu faction's territory like that. Usually, you would have sent a formal notification before visiting me." Naruto sighed, then sat on the ground, Shiva following the action. "I have a rather crazy idea, but not the harebrained scheme I usually devise." Shiva tilted his head in curiosity. Sighing again, Naruto answered Shiva's unasked question. "I'm thinking of returning to the underworld soon." Shiva smiled one of his most genuine smiles. "I think that's a great idea. You've healed and grown, both mentally and emotionally. You've also grown in power and skill. You also miss your family in the underworld, so I think it's been long enough." Shiva remembered the first time he met Naruto. Flashback start. Shiva sat on his mountain as usual, but he wasn't meditating this time. He felt someone enter the territory belonging to the Hindu faction. He found that a strange notion because the Hindu faction was so feared. The Trimurti was one of the top 10 greatest beings in creation. So fear is somewhat warranted even though none did anything to earn such fear. Back on topic, he focused his empathetic sense on the new arrival and was met with sadness, loathing, and overwhelming emotional pain. The intruder made a teleportation circle and appeared before Shiva. Shiva looked on in curiosity and empathy at what he now knew was a devil in a hooded cloak hiding all his features. "Hello. May I ask what brings you to the Hindu faction?" Shiva asked politely. The devil didn't speak. He just took what looked to be a breath in resignation and charged with a fist. Shiva didn't react, but the scenery changed immediately. It was a rocky field with a plain cloudless sky. Nothing could be seen as far as vision could go. This place was one of Shiva's realms to train and mediate when he wanted to be alone. When this happened, the devil stumbled but quickly regained momentum and charged Shiva again. Shiva evaded and blocked with absolutely minimal effort. "Why are you doing this, friend?" The devil didn't answer. He began to use his magic to shoot flames at Shiva, but Shiva continued to dodge and evade. Shiva idly thought about his attacker's motive. He could easily sense that the man before him was mighty. The devil could make Shiva put in. That was an actual effort in their bout, but the devil is holding back much of his power. His emotional state is indicative of one who suffered a massive heartbreak. He is deliberately holding his power back and purposely making his attacks sloppy, even though he is experienced in battle. He came directly to a faction that all the others fear entering and began attacking one of its leaders. As Shiva made a list of all he knew of his attacker, he came to a dreary conclusion. "You're trying to kill yourself." The devil hesitated, then began attacking harder. "Just fight back, please." The desperation in the devil's voice made Shiva pull him in for a hug. Startled, the devil didn't do anything for a moment before trying to break free half-heartedly. "My wife has the domains of love and devotion. She taught me how to spot certain things, like heartbreak in our marriage. While I went through a heartbreak myself, I can sense your heartbreak is different from the one I went through. Come, I welcome you to my home in Mount Kailash. You can tell me your story, and I'll listen patiently," Shiva said, still holding the devil, who stopped trying to break free. Flashback end. Shiva then became Naruto's first friend and pseudo-therapist. He taught Naruto how to meditate properly and was the catalyst for Naruto's beginning to move on from his pain. Parvati became Naruto's elder sister and helped him recover from the heartbreak. Naruto started to see her as his elder sister. Parvati also started seeing Naruto as her younger brother, and Ganesh and Kartikeya saw Naruto as his uncle, and Naruto could forget his pain. Then, he found his true love in Aisha, Lilith, and his other lovers. He is also friends with Vishnu and Dharma. Naruto also has 4 children whom he loves more and spoils all of them. He names his 3 children to godfathers as Trimurti of Hindu mythology, and another child godfather, Yasaka's brother, Kurama, who is stronger than Yasaka and can defeat all other super devils, Naruto, Aisha and Sirsex, in a one-on-one battle. "You think it's a good idea?" Naruto asked in apprehension. "Yes, Naruto, I do," Shiva answered without hesitation. "Okay, thanks for all of your help, Shiva. I doubt I'd ever be able to repay the kindness you and your family have shown me." Naruto acknowledged. "We were happy to help. We don't need any repayment, and more importantly, you needed to tell your sister about it. I already told to sister, Ganesh, and Kartikeya about my return to the underworld." Getting up, they shared a hug, and Naruto left in a teleportation circle. "Good luck, Marasabase Acha Dust, my best friend. Kateria, please don't do this," Serafal shouted as she stared up at a brown-haired woman wearing a revealing top and glasses over her eyes. A pair of devil wings were flapping behind her, keeping her elevated while she sneered down at Serafal and the group that was amassed around her. The reason Serafal was there was because she and Sirsex Lucifer, who stood beside her with his queen Graphia, were currently representing the devil community as a meeting between the 3 factions was set up a new alliance and peace treaty between the 3 factions. The general of the Grigori Azazel represented the fallen angel, who came with his ally Valley, a silver-haired boy in his late teens. On the angel side were Seraph Gabriel and the current archangel Michael, who both had blonde hair and blue eyes with a halo hovering above their heads. Gabriel had 10 white wings, while Michael had 12 golden wings. The meeting had gone well, with a debate on the Kokabiel incident starting. Rias Gremory and Sona Citri had given their thoughts and stories on the matter, along with the reviews of Rias's pawn, Izumi Hyodo. Then Azazel had brought up the problem with the Chaos Brigade, and that was when everything took a turn. Rias's Bishop Gasper's sacred gear was suddenly unleashed, and everything around them had stopped, with only the leaders and selected members of the rest being able to move and quickly determined that they were under attack. Rias went with her peerage to find Gasper and save him from the people trying to use his sacred gear to hurt them, while the leaders and Sona all stood within the confines of the meeting room. At least they did until an explosion caused them to abandon the room and gather outside. When they did, the old symbol of Leviathan appeared and revealed Kateria Leviathan, the last known descendant of the Leviathan family. "You took everything from my family. You, Serafal Citri, have what belongs to me. I want it back," she sneered, holding a staff in her hand, and magic seals appeared before it. "So, which of you will be the first to fall?" From the group, Azazel walked forward and stared up at the old faction member and put his hands in his pockets as he stared up at her. "So the governor of the Grigori comes first to die," she said before her eyes narrowed when she saw him shake his head. "Nah. I'm not really in the mood to fight today," he said, getting odd looks from everyone watching. Michael and Sirsex raised their eyebrows at the man who always had a plan for the worst. "Though you do have an opponent if you want one. He has been itching for a fight with people like you for a while." Who is this? Trash, you speak off." Azazel smirked as his hand pointed upwards. "Look up." "What?" she asked as she looked up. When she did, her face morphed into a look of terror just as a sizable jet-black sun suddenly slammed into her face and slammed her right into the ground, making a giant crater form in the earth. Before anyone could speak, an enormous wall of darkness, easily around 200 meters tall, suddenly circled the academy. At the same time, the previously clear skies suddenly darkened, and enormous clouds began to form. "What's happening?" Sona asked before she looked around and noticed everyone had a different look on their faces. Serafal looked ready to start crying as her hand went over her mouth. Searzex seemed very nervous while Grafia bit her lip hard enough to make a blood draw. Michael and Gabriel looked slightly concerned while Azazel was grinning. "Oni-san, what's happening?" Sona asked as a powerful presence appeared on the roof of Kuo Academy. When they saw who it was, she heard Serafal begin sobbing. Sona quickly understood why. Naruto Biel stood on top of Kuo Academy, looking similar to how they remembered him. He looked as if he had not aged a day. Naruto took a deep breath as he looked down towards the group and saw Azazel nod over at him. He saw Michael and Gabriel and gave them both a slight nod, and saw them do the same. Serafal he had to smile at, and his eyes softened when he saw her upset. He was undoubtedly in for a massive hug or a giant slap from the dark-haired girl. He turned and saw the two he least looked forward to visiting again. He saw them both looking up at him, one with a sad expression and one with a nervous face. When his eyes narrowed at them, he saw both Searzex and Grafia turn to look away. Everyone watched as he was on the roof 1 second, and then the next, he stood by the crater Teat Kateria was climbing out of. Said girl had a scorch mark across her face with a murderous expression, her staff gripped tightly in her hand. Who dares? Looking up, she saw Naruto standing there, and her blood ran cold when she noticed who it was that had hit her with the power of destruction. I dare. Naruto didn't wait for Kateria to begin her assault on him and quickly appeared in front of her, getting shocked eyes from the girl at how quick he was. His right leg collided with her stomach and kicked her into the air. He watched Kateria put the staff in front of her, and 4 magic seals appeared around it. Blasts of energy shot out, each thick and potent with dark magic. He easily avoided the attacks and even kicked one, sending it high into the air, briefly causing a small explosion of darkness to cover the sky. Naruto Biel. Damn you! Kateria shouted as her staff thrust forward again, and 4 more magic seals appeared. Gavest, was all she heard as she saw an enormous purple lighting charging towards her. She created defense seals around her body, but the moment the lighting hit, cracks formed and quickly broke them apart. She pushed backward and flew higher in the air to avoid the lighting. However, when she got to a safe level, she saw Naruto wasps no longer in front of her but had now appeared above her. "How are you moving so fast?" she asked, glaring at one of the men responsible for her family's downfall. Naruto, though, has yet to answer and remains quiet. His leg hit Kateria hard in the chest and shoulder, throwing her back to the ground, and she crashed right through one of the Kuo school buildings. Not giving her a chance to counter her attack, Naruto quickly appeared above the now partially destroyed building and aimed for the hole where she had fallen through. "Swords of Oblivion," he whispered, an English long sword with an open core made from the power of destruction. Each long sword went straight through the hole, and the building started to collapse. They could all hear Kateria screaming in pain as she was being burning from the power of destruction. While the younger devils winced and had to look away, the older devils and the other leaders of the other faction remained stoic, not showing any emotion to the brutal attack. "Old faction trash," Naruto whispered as he fell. Cracks formed on the spot he landed on and dusted his shoulder of any ash or dust he got caught on his jacket. He turned around to look towards the group and saw Serafal looking ready to race towards him. He stopped, though, when he felt a power spike come from the building that came from the old Leviathan devil woman. Turning back around, he narrowed his eyes when he saw Kateria walking out of the building, limping as she did. The once beautiful devil now had multiple burns and wounds covering her arms, legs, and stomach. Her clothes had been destroyed, leaving her naked for the world to see. Her face was contorted into a mixture of pain and anger, and her eyes were wide with an insane look. "You will not take this from me," she rasped out. "I will take my place as queen of the underworld, and you will bow to me." After that, she made a small jar appear in her right hand covered in devil runes and sealed. She waved her hand and quickly made them disappear before ripping the top lid. Naruto watched with narrowed eyes as purple-like snake figures wriggled out of the jar and began leeching and absorbing themselves into Kateria, who had a wide smirk on her face. The snakes began to glow with an orangey glow around them as they began to meld with Kateria, and he watched as her body began to change and alter itself. Her arms became long and tentacles-like, while her hair and facial features became wilder. Her S even got larger, and her body became more toned. The most noticeable difference was that her power level had jumped again. Walking forward towards her, he heard her begin to laugh before a powerful beam of energy shot out from her mouth, and the tip of the tentacles. Naruto sighed, cracked his shoulders in preparation, and extended his hands to each side of him. His fingers stretched and flexed, and those watching could see his arms turning as he prepared his move. Then, just when they got close to him, he brought his hands together and clapped his hands. The clap was so loud that many covered their ears, but they watched as an enormous force of wind created by the clap blocked the beams of energy and sent them spiraling away. "You'll have to do better than that," he said. He looked over and saw Kateria racing towards him with her wings stretched out wide. "I see your little trick made you and your attacks faster and not just stronger. I'll keep that in mind," he said as he went into the air with her. "I guess I will need to take this to the next level too." When he finished speaking, he powered up even more to the point where Sona could feel he was now stronger than he was fighting Kokebiel 2 weeks ago. If it had not been for Serafal standing next to her, using her demonic aura to protect her, she would be on the floor struggling to breathe. "You won't beat me," Kateria told him as her jaws extended to an inhuman length, with her tongue getting longer, and she said, "I am destined for greatness. Not even you can stop me." He then watched as she got a sultry look on her face and pushed her towards him while her hands gently rubbed over them. "Why not join me? Join us. You could be a great ally and I could give everything you desire," she told him. "I would give you myself to you, a strong woman for a strong man. Think about the outcomes if we united. Our children could be great. They would be the most powerful devilish to be brought to life." Any ordinary man would have been tempted by the offer, especially with her ample bust swaying from side to side like they were trying to hypnotize him. But this was Naruto Biel. He was no ordinary devil. "I'll pass," he told her. "Your great body does not match your awful personality. Get lost." Enraged at being turned away, Kateria let her anger take over and flew straight towards him. Destructor Longinus. 10%, he spoke as he formed a spear made of the power of destruction, and as the spear went and killed her and started to destroy her body. "What power," Sona commented as she was in complete awe. From what she had seen, the stories she had heard about his power were paling compared to what she saw. Her parents had told her about Naruto Biel, including why he left. It left her with a cold outlook on the Gremory family and Searzex. She did not believe that Searzex and Graphia, two people like a brother and sister to her like Serafal could ever do such a thing. Her respect for the two devils had taken a considerable blow. Regarding the power of Naruto Biel, she readily agreed with what his parent told her. If Naruto went all out at his full power, he could destroy all of Japan many times over with plenty of power to spare. It was a frightening power. Above in the sky, it begins to form back. Naruto's eyes narrowed when he figured this was Valley Lucifer. Dropping down to the ground, he walked steadily towards the duo and watched as Rias Gremory and her peerage appeared behind the Sekiryutai. "Give up, Valley, it's over," Izumi told him as she took deep breaths and looked on the verge of passing out as a bracelet around her wrist broke into multiple pieces. Meanwhile, Valley steadily stood up as he entered his balance breaker mode again without the helmet forming. He was about to attack Izumi, making the Gremory peerage ready themselves. However, behind Valley, Biku appeared and dropped out of a tree with his staff on his shoulder. "What brings you here, Biku?" Valley asked. "They want you back. They want you for some fight that will take place up north." "Hey, who the hell are you?" Izumi shouted as she stood back on her feet and let her gauntlet appear back on her hand. "Izumi, be careful. You have used up much energy today," Rias told her, but the brown-haired girl's focus was entirely on the two members of the Chaos Brigade. "His name is Biku, the descendant of Sun Wukong," Naruto stated, letting himself be known as everyone turned to look towards him. They all saw Biku take a step back in fear while Rias had gone pale with her eyes widening in shock. "Naruto Biel," she said aloud, making everyone else gulp and realize who he was. They had all been told he was the one who saved them, and Rias could not believe she had been speaking to one of the greatest heroes and strongest devil alive to be born. "We need to go," Biku said to Valley, grabbing his shoulder as a magic seal appeared beneath them. Valley, though, looked excited at the prospect of facing Naruto as he and Biku began to sink into the seal. "Valley Lucifer," Naruto spoke as everyone else looked surprised at the declaration while Valley narrowed his eyes. "I'll remember that name the next time I destroy a scumbag from the old Satan faction." Valley looked like he was about to speak. Still, he and Biku completely disappeared, leaving the Gremory peerage and Naruto behind, looking at where Valley and Biku had previously been standing. "You kids all right?" he asked gruffly, watching them quickly nod their heads. Being the first to snap out of their shock, Rias quickly bowed to Naruto. "Thank you, Naruto-sama, for both saving my peers in this situation and from the attack 2 weeks ago." In response, Naruto just shrugged. "Don't mention it, I was only there because someone called in a favor," he told them. "Can you move Sakuryutai?" All he got in response was a head shake before he walked forward and carried her to the remaining people. 5 minutes later, after admiring the carnage and destruction brought to the school, they eventually arrived at the meeting room. Despite mainly being destroyed in the explosion, thanks to the leader's use of magic, the room looks almost as good as it was. As soon as he walked in, the room went silent. He paid no attention to them before placing Izumi on a chair with Rias, and the blonde girl, Asia, quickly surrounded her. However, the moment he turned around, he felt a small figure slam into him, a pair of arms wrapped around his stomach, and a head firmly put itself on his chest. Looking down, his eyes softened when he saw Sarafal holding on to him tightly as she expressed her sobs and tears. "Sarah-chan," he said softly. "You jerk." She sobbed as her feet kicked his shins. 200 years and we don't get any word from you. No phone calls, no letters, no nothing. Do you know how worried we have all been? Many thought you were dead. Quickly, he began to feel bad and guilty as Sarafal sobbed out how annoyed she was with him despite never letting go of the hug. He always knew that Sarafal would be more emotional than others when he returned and was not surprised by this reaction. They had been very close before he left, and she was one of his best friends for a long time. He didn't take into account how much it would affect her. Slowly, his arms wrapped around Sarafal, and he placed his head on her. "Sorry, Sarah-chan, you know what a baka I can be," he whispered as she nodded her head on his. "Giant baka, she said before kissing his cheek and wrapping her legs around his waist while putting her head on his neck. "You're not going to move from that spot for the rest of the day now, are you?" he said, feeling her shake his head. "Thought so. That was a badass entrance, Naruto-san," Azazel commented as he patted Naruto's shoulder with a big grin plastered on his face. "I always knew you had style. While my words won't be as colorful as Azazel's, I agree that it was fortunate that you arrived when you did, Naruto-san," Michael said as he and Gabriel stepped forward, shook his hand, and thanked him for the assistance. "Well, this idiot told me what was happening and suggested that I come back up, so to speak," he told them. "I figured it was time to end my imposed exile. Anything with the old Satan faction in it, then I want to be there to put them away." Michael nodded while Gabriel, standing behind Michael, gave Naruto a flirty wink they all saw. Azazel grinned and patted his back again while Sarafal glared at the woman she called her rival as if she would make the angel combust immediately. "Stay away from my Naruto-tan," she thought as she tightened her grip on him. "Naruto-sama," he heard as he saw Sona Citri standing there with her queen Tsubaki and the rest of her peerage behind her. They all bowed at the same time before Sona spoke. "Naruto-sama, thank you for saving us during the incident with Kokebiel." She told him we are in your debt but saw him wave it off. "Don't worry about Sona-chan. Like I said, I could never let Sarah-chan's baby sister get hurt," he said, making Sona look slightly annoyed while Sarafal's eyes sparkled as she nuzzled her face with Naruto's. Though annoyed, Sona was glad Sarafal's attention and affection were not on her. It was nice not to have her sister's overbearing personality always stuck in her. Maybe now she didn't have to worry about her sister always embarrassing her. Looking at Sarafal, she knew now that she liked Naruto-bile more than just a friend. She was never this familiar or friendly with other male devils. Sarafal had never shown much interest in male devils, and for a time, Sona believed Sarafal had a thing for girls rather than boys. Though she knew that was not true, her actions were proof of that. She never had eyes for any man because they had already focused on the man she wanted. Sona now firmly believed her sister was in love with Naruto-bile. "Naruto-tan is still so brave like I remember," Sarafal chanted happily as she let out a girlish giggle and continued to nuzzle with Naruto, who, though rolling his eyes, had to smile. Naruto. The hair on the back of his neck stood up as his head gently moved to the side. Everyone looked over towards the voice, and Serafal noticed his eyes had narrowed as he was glaring towards the side of them. Sirzek stepped forward with a nervous smile, with Grafia standing beside him, whose eyes were firmly plastered on Naruto. A smile was tugging at the side of her mouth. "Hee, how have you been, buddy? It's been a long time. We've missed you," Sirzek said happily as he waved his hands in the air childishly and stepped forward with an arm stretched out. Rias and her peerage all smiled at Sirzek's friendly attitude towards Naruto. Rias was aware of the friendship the two once shared and was happy to see her brother reunite with his longtime friend. Everyone else, however, looked rather nervously and took a step back. The reason was that Naruto's eyes had narrowed to dangerous proportions, and they felt the temperature heat up. Serafal hopped off of Naruto and turned to tug him away from them, but Naruto walked towards Sirzek with his right arm outstretched. Just as Sirzek was about to shake his longtime friend's hand after so long, the pain suddenly erupted from his face, and he felt the ground beneath him suddenly leave him. Every single person they were left shell-shocked while the devil all looked as if hell just froze over while in front of him. A hole was now in the wall with Sirzek on the ground outside, having been punched out of the 4-story building. Sirzek-sama, Oni-san, Grafia and Rias called as their devil wings shot out. Before they could move, however, they found the older Biel member gripping their elbows tightly and looking at them with a serious look. He looked at Rias, who looked frightened, before turning towards Grafia. In his opinion, she had not aged a day and was still as beautiful as ever. Her long hair was now tied in neat braids, which disappointed him. She was more beautiful with her hair down. He thought she seemed more uptight and guessed her free-spirited days were long over. Grafia meanwhile stared into his black and red eyes, and she could still see the sadness and hurt that she had helped cause all those years ago. He was still as handsome as always, and without a doubt, he only got better over time. She was about to stretch her hand up to him, but she saw him shake his head and stopped herself. "I will warn both of you now," he said in a serious and eerie tone that made them both shudder. "If any of your family come anywhere near me, I will roast you alive. Keep your husband away from me." The tone he spoke in left everyone knowing he was deadly serious. Rias's peerage was wed to move, but one look from Naruto made them all freeze on the spot. He dared them to interfere. "Do you understand?" Both girls nodded. "We understand," Grafia whispered as her eyes glossed over. When his hand let her arm go, she bolted for the wall, not wanting to let people see the sparkling tears running down her face. She still had a reputation to uphold. Why are you like this? What makes you think you can threaten my family?" Rias asked, getting some courage and putting her hands on her hips. "You cannot make threats against the Gremory family. We are the strongest in the underworld." His eyes looked at her with little recognition that inwardly infuriated Rias, even more so when he snorted. "Why don't you ask those parents of yours? Your family has shamed my family enough. It won't happen again." He then turned his back to her can and walked back towards Serafal and the other waiting leader. He ignored Rias, trying to get his attention while her peerage wanted to calm her down. "I apologize for the interruptions and the scene I caused. I hope you understand," he said politely to the other leader, who nodded back. Even the higher-ups in the other factions knew what went down between him, Sirzek, and Grafia. Serafal stood beside him and wanted to hold onto his arm but stopped when she saw the Biel seal appear beneath him. "You're not leaving, are you?" she asked, panicked, not wanting him to disappear from them all again wholly. She went to lunge at him but felt Sona gently hold her arm to keep her from making a scene. "I'm not disappearing," he told Serafal, seeing she didn't want him to go just yet. "But I have some people back home that I haven't seen in 200 years, just like you. It's time I saw them and showed them I was okay." Despite wanting more of his time, Serafal nodded before she stuck out her pinky finger. "Promise you won't disappear again?" Naruto laughed before he nodded and wrapped his pinky finger around hers. "I promise, Sarah-chan. Suppose you want, you can come round the Bale's estate later. I have a few stories to tell which you may enjoy." Serafal was practically bouncing on the balls of her feet and nodded happily. "I will, I will, I will," she happily chanted as Naruto sent her a wink. The Biel seal erupted in darkness as Naruto began to teleport away. Just before he ultimately left, he saw Sirzek stumble inside and look at him. Smirking, Naruto raised his hand and gave Sirzek his middle finger before he teleported away. "We are so fucked up," Circex whispered as Graphia nodded sadly. Things would change in the underworld, and the Gremory family would be feeling it without a doubt. This place hasn't changed a bit, he said as he looked up at the front of the Bael mansion. The large royal-looking Bael palace had stayed the same during his absence. Beautiful roses decorated the court walls in warm red, orange, purple, and blue colors, while the pillars still had burning torches to guide their guests to the front door. Walking forward and up the large door, he grabbed the handle and gently pushed it open. He never needed a key since anyone of Bael blood or a servant of the Bael family was keyed into the palace and could walk in without a problem. Anyone who tried to force their way in would get a nasty surprise by being set on fire. Walking inside, he had to stop and look around at the large hallway as many memories of his childhood rushed back. He had taken his first steps in this hallway and remembered waiting on the large staircase for his parents to come home with his little sister Isabella. On the side, pictures of their family littered the tables and cabinets, with a large painting of his parents settled on one of the walls, looking happy and very in love. His parents were in love with each other from childhood, and his mother is a member of the Vapula family. "Who are you?" he heard as he turned to his left and saw a younger boy, and he could see his uncle, Ivis Bael's hairstyle and the eye color of his aunt, Misla Bael. "You are Magdaran, youngest son, Uncle Ivis," Naruto said, shocking the boy. "Magdaran, who are you with?" Lord Bael asked, appearing as he came down the stairs before stopping when he saw Naruto look up at him with a smile. "My son." "Hey, Dad," Naruto said as his father briskly walked down the stairs and hugged his son tightly, chuckling in happiness. "My son," he said, extending his arms and getting a good look at Naruto. He could see his son had taken after his mother more in terms of look, but he saw hints of himself in there, along with the severe matching side that both shared. "It is good to have you home at last. This house and this family have missed you dearly." "I have missed you too, Dad. I'm sorry it took me so long to come home, but I hope you understand why I left in the first place," he said, with Lord Bael shaking his head dismissively. "We all understood the reason. Though we wish you could have kept in contact with us or at least let us know where you were and how you were," he said sternly, making Naruto chuckle nervously and scratch his head. "But you're here now, and I guess that's what counts," he told him, with Naruto smiling and nodding towards his father. "I should inform your sister and cousins that you are home. I'm sure they will be eager to see you." "It would like that. Is Mother around?" Naruto asked and saw both his father and Magdaran nod. "Aunt Luna is out in the gardens. I'll take you there," Magdaran told him as he took his hand excitedly and led them away while Lord Bael went to his office to make a few calls. In the distance, they could see Lady Bael happily walking through the garden as she admired the beautiful flowers that made the Bael estate so beautiful and famous. "I'll go tell Aunt while you walk over to us," Magdaran said, not leaving him room for argument before he flew towards Lady Bael while Naruto strolled towards them. He took large and slow breaths, nearing them, and could feel his nerves building up. Would his mother be angry? Sad? Furious? Upset? He knew his leaving had hurt her, but it was never intentional. Breaking his mother was never something he wanted to happen. As he approached them, he saw his mother turn in his direction, and she looked like she was about to drop to the ground in shock. Her hand shot up to her mouth, trying to muffle the sobs from her, but it was useless. Her cries of happiness were too loud to be hidden. Along her cheeks, tears flowed down them like river streams and showed no case of stopping. When he got closer, her legs finally began working, and he saw her lifting the hem of her dress and quickly making her way toward him, her cries becoming louder and louder the closer she got. When she was only a few meters in front of him, he leapt from the spot, threw her arms around her eldest son, and began crying into his chest as her arms shot around him and held him as tightly as possible. Naruto could feel the tears go through his clothes and his mother's body shake. He felt his mother sob even more when he wrapped his arms around her body and placed his head on her shoulder like he used to. She felt that if she let go, her son would disappear again. "Hi, Mom," he said as he made her look at him. "Sorry, I took so long to come home." Her response was a hearty laugh mixed through her crying, and she leaned up and began placing motherly kisses all along his face, making Magdaran smile as he watched them. "I have missed you so much," she told him through her sniffles as she placed her hands on each side of his face and gently caressed it in a motherly fashion. "You are not going away again, young man," she told him as she wiped her eyes and felt Naruto place his arm across her shoulders and kiss the top of her head. "I promise I won't, Mom," he said, making her smile happily before he felt a sharp whack on the back of his head courtesy of his mother. "That's for not calling us at all. That will be the least of your worries when I'm through with you," she said, making him gulp and nod his head quickly, which brought another smile to his mother's face as it softened. She looped her arm into his and placed her head on his shoulder. "I want to know everything. Please don't leave anything out," she told him. "I'll explain later, I promise. Sarah-chan will be here later, so I will explain it all when everyone's together," he told them both. Lady Biel nodded and led them back to the palace. Everyone could see she was practically happy to have her son around. That and the spark that had disappeared with her son 200 years ago finally returned. Unknown location. In a dark room, sitting on a throne, looking towards the 5 monitors in front of him, was a middle-aged man with long dark silver hair and a trimmed silver beard. He wore silver-colored royal-looking robes with 6 metal wings on his shoulders, 3 on each. On his hand, a silver goblet filled with wine. He is Rizavam Riven Lucifer, the son of the original Lucifer. Next to the man, standing on the right side of the throne, was another man with long, light silver hair tied in a braided hairstyle and silver eyes. He was wearing a silver robe with detailed accessories. He is Euclid Lucifuge. Then, someone entered the room, and he was a handsome man dressed in black armor with a cape. He had long brown hair that went to his hips, with many bangs covering his right eye. He is Shalba Beelzebub. Rizavam, there is a recent development in the underworld, Shalba said. What exactly is it, Shalba? Rizavam inquired. Naruto Biel has returned to the underworld, Shalba announced, shocking Rizavam and Euclid. Is it correct? Rizavam inquired. It is correct, and I received it from our spies in the underworld, Shalba explained. Well, the great king of destruction has shown himself after 200 years, Rizavam said, a sadistic smile on his face as he slowly stirred the wine in his goblet. Not only that, but Naruto also killed Kateria when she attacked the peace conference between the 3 fractions, Shalba said. That bastard has returned on the correct time to kill him on our own hands. Said a new voice with hatred. He looks like a good-looking man wearing the clothes of a noble. His clothes were black with dark red belts and motifs. He also had a cape. He had black hair tied up in a small ponytail and violet eyes. He also had pointy ears and pale skin. He is Kroizuri Asmodeus. Shalba, instruct your spies to observe Naruto's actions simply. As Shalba left the room, Rizavam said. Kroizuri, be ready with Clipoth, Rizavam explained. Kroizuri nodded and walked out of the room. We'll see how you can stop me this time, Naruto Biel, Rizavam said, drank some wine, swallowed it, and burst out laughing. Underworld. Biel Palace. Naruto stood up and sat beside Luna, putting his arm around her shoulders. Luna leaned in and smiled while his father got his attention and spoke up. Now that you are home, what do you plan on doing? His father asked him as he got up and began pouring himself a drink from the small table to the side of them. By now, no doubt the entire underworld has heard of your return, and many will be eager to find out what you plan on doing. You might remember you have certain responsibilities to take over now that you're back. His mother told him in a matter-of-fact tone as his father stood behind her and nodded in agreement. Naruto leaned back and put both arms behind his head, knowing fully what they were discussing. The lordship of the family, I'm guessing? He asked and saw both his parents and his sister nod in confirmation. He was technically the eldest, so the family's lordship would fall to him naturally. He guessed his father had waited until he eventually returned to finally be able to hand it over since it likely should have been done a long time ago. However, due to his leaving, it never happened. His parents had been the lord and lady of the Biel family for many centuries, and he felt they were getting eager to retire soon. I taught you from a young age what you needed to know about ruling one of the 34 pillar families, and now that you are back, you can finally take on the mantle of Lord Biel. They both watched as Naruto shook his head. I don't think the mantle of Lord Biel is for me. There is something which is my position. Luna and others, except Celis, are confused after hearing it. The mantle of Lucifer. Celis said, shocking everyone in the house as Naruto nodded his head. But you need peerage to battle Sirzex for the Lucifer mantle, Isabella pointed out. I believe having peerages has advantages, Naruto said, shocking everyone. Peerages? Isabella inquired. Well, my dear sister, I have 2 peerage sets, Naruto said, shocking everyone in the room. How come we all only got one set? Isabella wondered. My demonic power has caused 2 sets to react, and Ajuka stated that if a set responds to the devil's demonic power, it will be his. I gathered them before my self-exile from the underworld and have full members from both peerage sets, Naruto stated. So, you have 2 completed peerage set members, Celes said, nodding. When are you going to bring them down to the underworld? Isabella inquired. Oh, that I know. But I have 1 or 2 personal issues to deal with first, he told them. Luna studied her son intensely. She could always tell when Naruto kept something from them, even from a young age. He could lie and cheat his way through everyone except Luna. There's something more, however. Something you are keeping from us? Something important? Luna asked as she and Isabella leaned forward while Celes stood there and sipped on his drink. That's right. There is something I need to tell you all. Mom, I want you to promise you won't get angry with me and don't chew me a new one. Naruto asked as he stood up and took a few paces back. His family looked at him with idle curiosity, his mother being the most pronounced. He waited to speak until he saw her nod, her interest getting to her. I have a son and 3 daughters. All around the room, he saw an eyebrow shoot up in surprise. That was the last thing they expected to hear from him, which showed on their faces. His sister looked slightly surprised, her eyes showing most of it. His father had a mixed reaction. Surprise in a similar manner to his daughter, but there was also a big sign of happiness. Undoubtedly, finding out he had grandchildren would lighten up the Biel family. Naruto saw his eyes light up and could see signs of a smile beginning to appear. Looking towards his mother, he paled and tried to run away but halted when she grabbed his ear and bonked him. His mother seemed downright furious as her hands shook, making the pain in his ear even worse. I have grandchildren and I'm only finding out about this now? She hissed at him as he nodded his head, doing his best to stay tough, yet against Luna, he knew it would only fail. What are their names? How old are they? My son's name is Anos, is 10 years old. My first daughter's name is Misha, is 9 years old. My second daughter's name is Sasha, and she is 9 years old. My last daughter, Kuno, is 9 years old. Quote, 10 years? I have missed 10 years of their life already. Naruto, you are in a world of pain once I'm done with you. Before his mother could bring the pain, his father stepped forward and tried to calm the situation and his wife down. Okay, love, you can do that later, but first, a few more questions need answering. For instance, I would like to know who the mother of my new grandchildren happens to be. That's right, Luna thought as it hit her. Some woman had wormed their way into his heart after the whole Graphia debacle. Who did you impregnate, young man? Mentally, he was groaning. My children's mothers, Aisha Necron, Yasaka, Lilith, Naruto said. Hearing mothers, all of them were shocked. After hearing Lilith's name, all of them are shocked, and Luna asks, Lady Lilith, as Naruto just nodded. The mother of all devils. Ibis Biel said. Yasaka, the leader of Kyoto Yukai Fraction, Isabella said. You're the father of Yasaka's child? You have a daughter with one of the strongest kitsunes in the world? His mother whispered firmly to him, to which he nodded. So many people have been trying to find out who she had a child with, but no one could figure it out. Luna looked down at her son with narrowed eyes and felt something fishy was happening. Well, where is there? Why are they not here with us? They are part of this family, are they not? Why have they not been introduced to us yet? Naruto was wincing when he felt his ear get tugged even harder. About that, I will bring them after telling you all about them. All the servants within the Biel mansion were idly going about their day and duties when they heard a horrified scream come from the living room as well a loud smack and slap. The younger ones looked troubled, while those around before Naruto had left smiled at hearing the lady of the household teach her son a lesson. Now, bring me my grandbabies. Mount Kalash. I had a feeling you would be stopping by soon, he heard as he walked up to the familiar-looking mansion. His wife, Aisha Biel, stood behind a tree as she collected apples from the branches and lowered them into a basket. You are looking a little worse for wear. Why? I got scolded by my mother, he told the beautiful devil, who snorted and laughed. The image of her husband being scolded and beaten by his mother was highly humorous, given that this man could make countries disappear and gods shake in their boots. So you heard? He asked as he walked over to Aisha. Appearing beside her, he took one of the apples from the branches and went to take a bite. Before he could, a hand slapped his hand away. Ow, he pouted as Aisha gave him a stern stare before he dropped the apple into the basket. He got a nod from Aisha in response. If you mean about your return to the underworld, I have. The whole world has heard of your return to the underworld. Defeating the ancestor of the original Leviathan will draw that kind of attention to you. Well, she was pushing my buttons, and you know how I feel about the old Satan faction. They're better off in the ground for all I care, he told her seriously before Aisha placed the basket down on the ground, stood on her tiptoes and placed a delicate kiss on his lips. I am going to take all of you to the underworld to meet my family, and my mother wanted to meet her grandchildren, Naruto said after their kiss. Okay. I will inform everyone about it, Aisha said. Thanks, I will come in a few minutes, Naruto said as he disappeared into a magic circle. After that, Naruto went to Kyoto and picked up the Kuno and Yasaka to Mount Kailash. Yasaka gave her leadership to her younger brother, the strongest kitsune to live, Kurama, who was happy to take the leadership of West Yukai Fraction. Kuno is very happy after meeting her half-siblings, and Misha and Sasha are so glad to meet Kuno, and then all Naruto's peerage members teleported themselves to Mount Kailash. After that, all of them are teleported back to the underworld. Underworld. Bael Palace. Naruto stood in the middle of the main hall as his family gathered before him. His parents were at the front, with his uncle and aunt, his sister and cousins just behind them. Behind the family were all the other servants who wanted to meet his peerage members, wives, love interests and his kids. Luna and others are shocked to see Lilith and a mini-version of Naruto before her. Naruto's father quickly welcomed them and introduced himself. All of them are entranced by meeting with Aisha, Yasaka and Valiana. Naruto could see his parents' happiness and how stunning and polite all of his peerage members and lovers were. Thank you for welcoming us into your home. Please take care of us, Naruto wives and lovers said as they bowed to the Lord and Lady of House Bael. As Lord Bael, I welcome you to our home and family. Celis welcomed as he bowed before the mother of all devils. This is no need at all, Lord Bael, because from now onwards, I am your daughter-in-law. Lilith said as she moved Anos forward and then said to Anos, Anos, meet your grandfather. Quote, Grandpa? Anos said as Celis, who lowered to Anos's level, hugged him. Misha, Sasha, Kuno. Naruto spoke as he went near to his mother and father, who is hugging his son. This is Grandma and Grandpa. Luna went down their level, her face and eyes showing nothing but love for the little girls. You all are so beautiful. She patted her grandchildren's heads, making them smile by seeing their grandmother's happy expression. Luna hugged all her grandchildren, and seeing her smile, Naruto just smiled. One by one, his family quickly meet with his peerage and falls in love with the little kids, who are quickly enjoying their new family and the attention they give them. Despite knowing the difficulties that would be lying ahead, Naruto enjoyed the moment and watched happily as his wives, lovers, kids and peerage members welcomed into the family. The day went normal as the kids played with grandma, aunt and uncle. The next day, Naruto and all his family eat breakfast with the kids. After completing the breakfast, Naruto decided to meet with Ajuka to get peerage sets for Lilith and Aisha. Mom, we will visit Ajuka to get the evil piece set for Lilith and Aisha, Naruto said as his mother nodded her head. Beelzebub Mansion. Stepping out of the Bael magic symbol, Naruto, Aisha, and Lilith quickly found themselves standing outside a giant castle in the middle of nowhere with no signs of life anywhere within the facility. Of course, he chose somewhere so recluse, he said as he and his wives walked forward and, showing great strength, pushed the large wooden doors open and began walking inside. The grand hallway was lit like a Christmas tree. Multiple doors lay on each side of the wall, with a large elevator at the end with metal doors. Beside the elevator doors, he saw an intercom system. Walking forward, he pushed for the elevator doors to open but was not surprised when they refused to open, and he heard a voice call out from the intercom system. Who is it? I'm too busy to see anyone right now. Make an appointment or something, a dreary voice called, making his eyes roll and shake his head. He leaned forward and pushed the button of the intercom. Hey, dumbass. You let me down to that home you call a lab, or I will burn this place to the ground and roast your ass. He was unsurprised that he got silent for the next 30 seconds before the voice spoke again. Naruto? Looking up to the right corner of the ceiling, he saw a video camera moving in their direction and stopped when it landed on them. He gave the camera a wave, and it was only a second later the elevator activated and the metal doors opened. A minute later, Naruto watched as the elevator doors opened, and he found himself staring at a large warehouse-like room underneath a castle with countless test tubes, crash test dummies, machines, tanks, giant chess pieces and all kinds of weird stuff that he would expect from the man he was visiting. Walking forward took Naruto only a short time to find the person he sought. Said person has a very powerful and recognizable signature. Ijuka, Naruto said, letting a slight smirk appear as the man turned around and lifted his welding visor to reveal a young man the same age as Naruto. Ijuka was a handsome man with short, green, messy hair, brown eyes, and a light complex. While other devils would have worn royal-looking robes designed explicitly for pure blood devils, Ijuka stuck with a tattered pair of jeans and a greased shirt with rips going up and down the sleeves. Naruto Biel. It's about damn time you came back, they said, standing up, standing at a similar height to Naruto as the two grasped hands before going in for a one-armed hug, patting the other back as they did. While he was not as close to Ijuka as he had been with Sirzex or Serafal, he was still a greatly valued friend and comrade who had each other's back during the Devil Civil War. He was the same age as Naruto and Sirzex and had been part of their group of friends for as long as he could remember. Well, I guess I had to come home eventually, he said, stepping back and looking around the place. I should not be surprised that the current Beelzebub has not changed all that much. Are you back for good now? I can think of many people who would be overjoyed. All of them are happy, and my mother is one who became very happy, Naruto explained. It is a pleasure to meet you, Lady Lilith. Ijuka bowed before the Devil Mother. It is also an honor to meet you, Ijuka Beelzebub, Lilith said. Ijuka noticed a new person beside them and inquired, who could you be? I am Aisha Biel, Naruto-kun's wife and his first queen. Aisha introduced herself as Ijuka and was surprised to learn that Naruto was married. Well, Ijuka, I need your assistance. Can you make a peerage set for both of my wives? Naruto stated that Ijuka was shocked when he heard the word, wives. Wives, Lady Lilith is also your wife? Ijuka inquired, surprised when Lilith and Naruto nodded. Lilith replied, yes, Lord Beelzebub. That's excellent. Come on, I just made a few new sets, and you can have your own, Ijuka said as they approached. In the lab, the entire locker system was present. He took 2 peerage sets, each with 15 pieces. Lady Lilith, Lady Aisha, add your blood and magic to the pieces, Ijuka said as Aisha and Lilith dropped a blood drop with their demonic power. The cases in themselves began to glow once the blood drop hit them. The case seemingly absorbed the blood into it, a white glow on Aisha's case and a red light on Lilith's point. After it went down, the pieces were shown, most of which were mutated. After studying them, Ijuka has said that some of their pieces have been mutated. The 2 old friends caught up, and Naruto spoke about the things he had seen done and the people he had met while he asked Ijuka what life as a Satan was like. The simple answer was that it was boring, and he hoped to retire within the next century. Being a Satan was not all it was cracked up to be. After collecting the peerage sets, Naruto, Aisha, and Lilith returned to Biel Palace. Lilith has used her mutated queen piece on her faithful and loyal member, Albedo. An impeccable beauty, Albedo is a woman with lustrous jet-black hair and the face of a goddess. She has golden irises and vertically split pupils. On her left and right temples are 2 thick horns protruding crookedly, and a pair of black angel wings on her waist. Albedo wears a pure white dress with silky gloves covering her slender hands and a golden spiderweb necklace that covers her shoulders and chest. She is also an ultimate class devil on par with Graphia. Lilith used her 2 bishop pieces on Ingvild Leviathan, who is half devil and half human. She is one of the descendants of the original Leviathan. She is the possessor of the scared gear, Longinus, Nereid Kyrie. Ingvild is a beautiful foreign girl who appears to be in her late teens with a whimsical aura. She has long purple hair and orange eyes. She is wearing a blue heart-shaped pendant necklace, adding a touch of color to their outfit. The dress is white, with a deep V neckline that adds an elegant touch. She is also an ultimate class devil in power and strength. Lilith has used her 2 mutated night pieces on Shin Regula, her right-hand man. Shin has gray hair, colorless eyes, and a large vertical scar over his left eye. He dresses in black armor and a black coat, usually carrying a sword. He is also an Ulit mate class devil. Lilith has used her first rook from the Balaam family, one of the remaining devil house. Beru Balaam has black hair and green eyes. He is dressed in a green jacket with a white shirt peeking from underneath, suggesting a casual yet stylish attire. He is a high-class devil. Lilith has used her second rook on Medusa. She has long purple hair and black eyes. She wears a black polo neck top and blue jeans. She is also a high-class devil. Aisha has used her mutated bishop on Yu. Yu is a vampire with wavy golden blonde hair, crimson red eyes, and a porcelain complexion. Despite being over 300 years old, she has the appearance of 20 years. Yu's outfit consists of a frilly white dress shirt and a black miniskirt with frills. She also wears a white coat with a blue lining, short boots, and knee-high socks. She is quickly on the level of an ultimate class devil. She was easily on par with Seraphal or perhaps even stronger in terms of power. South Korea, Seoul. Naruto and Aisha have been teleported to South Korea for Aisha's night. Naruto and Aisha went to Seoul to meet her. Cha-hei and one of the Naruto lovers. Cha is a pretty young woman with gray eyes and blonde hair in a bob cut. She is wearing a white t-shirt and black jeans. She was saved by both Naruto and Aisha when the stray devils attacked her. She fell in love with Naruto at first sight, and Naruto and Aisha helped her heal and recover from injuries. Later, for 3 months, she has been traveling with Naruto, and she proposes to him to become his girlfriend, which Naruto accepts and develops feelings for her. After reaching their destination, Naruto knocked on the door. Cha-heian opened the door, and seeing Naruto, she immediately kissed him. Naruto also returned the kiss, and they started to make out to each other for 10 minutes. Needing air, she decided to break the kiss. "Hello, Naru-kun," Aisha-chan. Cha-heian stated. "Hello, Hei-chan," Naruto said. "Hello, Hei," Aisha said. "What did I bring for this visit?" Hei inquired. "Well, Hei-chan, Aisha-chan has her peerage set, and as a promise, we came you reincarnate into the devil," Naruto said. A mutated nightpiece appeared in Aisha's hands, and seeing the nightpiece, Cha-heian nodded her head to become a devil. After performing the ritual, Cha-heian can feel her powers increase, and black devil wings appear on her back. Cha-heian has packed her luggage to take with them to the underworld. Japan, Osaka. Naruto, Aisha and Cha-heian have been teleported to Japan for Aisha's second night. Naruto, Aisha and Cha-heian meet Asuna Yuki, one of Naruto's lovers and user of the scared gear sword birth. Asuna is a pretty young woman who is in her 20s. She has long, orange-brownish chestnut hair and hazel eyes. She is wearing a white blouse and a blue skirt, giving her a casual yet stylish look. Naruto met her during his stay in Japan when she was being pursued by fallen angels for her scared gear. Naruto saved her and also assisted in her swordsmanship and magic training. Naruto pays her frequent visits, and Asuna has begun to develop feelings for her knight in shining armor. After 5 years, Asuna musters the courage to confess her feelings for Naruto, which he accepts because he does not want to hurt her, but Naruto also develops feelings for her. Naruto has also promised her to turn into a devil. Naruto knocked on the door after they arrived at their destination. Asuna opened the door and saw Naruto standing in front of her. She hugged him tightly. "Hello, Naru-kun." "Aisha-chan, Hei-chan." Asuna stated. "Hello, Asuna-chan," Naruto said. "Hello, Asuna," Aisha said. "Hello Asuna-chan," Cha-heian said. "What did I bring for this visit?" Asuna inquired. "Well, Asuna-chan, Aisha-chan has her peerage set, and as a promise, we came you reincarnate into the devil," Naruto said. A nightpiece appeared in Aisha's hands, and seeing the nightpiece, Asuna nodded her head to become a devil. After performing the ritual, Asuna can feel her powers increase, and black devil wings appear on her back. Familiar forest. A familiar forest is a forest full of familiars. Familiars are monsters and supernatural beings that have been magically bound to the devil as a servant or ally. Naruto and Aisha are the ones who teleported into the familiar forest to meet the one and only female dragon king, Tiamat. She is a blue dragon known as the Chaos Karma Dragon. She is a beautiful woman with straight and long, pale blue hair, dark blue eyes, and a cold atmosphere that radiates from her beauty. She possesses a mighty dragon aura within her body. She also wears a navy blue skirt. Naruto met her during the battle with Bahamut. The two became friends, and Tiamat was one of the people he met after his exile. Naruto is the first to see Tiamat's proper form. After a long date, the Dragon Queen asked the Great King of Destruction to be her boyfriend, which was accepted, and from then on, both fell in love. Tiamat sensed her lover and flew towards him, and she landed before transforming into her human form and kissing him with all her might. Naruto returned his kiss as well. "Hello, Naru-kun, Aisha," Tiamat said. "Hello, Tiamat-chan," Naruto said. "Hello Tiamat," Aisha said. "Are you ready to become a devil?" Naruto inquired. "Of course, my Naru." Tiamat said that Aisha used her 8 mutated pieces on the Dragon Queen, and after her body accepted the pieces, she became a devil. After that, all of them are teleported back to the underworld. Naruto and Aisha were transported back to the underworld after meeting Asuna, Hei-chan, and Tiamat. Once they met with Naruto's family, they moved his peerage members to a new house near his parents. Aisha used her creation powers to construct the palace, a traditional Japanese castle with multiple tiers and pagoda-like roofs. The castle is painted a striking blue with elegant gold accents. It is surrounded by water and can be accessed via a bridge. The castle is beautifully illuminated, casting a warm glow that contrasts with the calm blue exterior. It stands out against a starry night sky and a red moon, adding to its mystical allure. Afterward, the trio traveled to other dimensions to bring more peerage members for Aisha and Lilith. Naruto created a space-time hold to transport them to different dimensions, including the 600th world, Jujutsu Kaisen world, and Mushoku Tensei world. Mushoku Tensei world. In the Mushoku Tensei world, we see a blonde-haired woman with a ponytail and chin-length hair strands hanging on either side. She has blue-shaded eyes and a voluptuous figure with large S. She is wearing a beautiful black dress that complements her figure and makes her look stunning. She lives in a house outside the city, near the river bank, and is now preparing food for herself. Naruto, Aisha, and Lilith appeared using a portal into her house. Seeing that she was cooking, Naruto went near her and whispered, "What are you cooking, Zenith-chan?" After hearing a lovely and warm voice in her ears, Zenith turned towards the voice and saw Naruto. Seeing Naruto, she immediately kissed him on the lips while pressing her large S against his chest and hugged him tightly. Naruto also kissed her back and hugged her tightly, as he was able to feel her large S against his chest. After separating from the kiss, she replied, "I am making steak." "Well, what brings about this sudden visit?" "Aisha-chan got her peerage set, and we decided to bring you back to our world." "Really?" "Yes, we are going to live together." "Well, come on, let's eat dinner." After that, they all ate dinner and turned Zenith into a devil, and they decided to stay there for the night. The next day, Zenith said goodbye to the nearby villagers. After that, Zenith, Naruto, Aisha, and Lilith left for the other world. Jujutsu Kaisen World, Shinjuku City, Tokyo City.